Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Tonight we are going to do kind of a variety thing again. I believe my partner on Velopack, Kaylin's going to be joining us a little bit later due to time zones. He sleeps when my stream starts, like a sane person. So we're going to poke at a few other things. We've got some material design stuff. I think I mentioned last time that we were waiting on a NuGet key to get updated so we could publish updates. Congratulations, that occurred. So once again, updates are flowing, and hopefully sometime either maybe this weekend, maybe before Christmas, I've got some time off. I'm looking to get the 5.2.0 release out because there's a lot of fixes and things inside of it, and I think it should probably get itself packaged up and ready to go. So that will be forthcoming shortly. We're going to look at least one pull request for the material design project tonight as well. Okay, next thing. GitKon is coming. So GitKon.com for anybody who isn't following along, and one of the most important things. So it's going to be a great conference. Lots of cool speakers. But down on day one, me. So I have a session on becoming a GitKraken power user. So anyone who's been around my stream long enough knows I love and adore my precious GitKraken. So this is going to be a lot of tips, tricks, kind of what I will say the essentials are to move beyond kind of that beginner to a more advanced level. So it should be a good time. I do believe a lot of the sessions will end up getting posted online after the conference. Usually there's some lag time there, but it's a free conference. So sign up if you're interested. It'll be great. Yeah, save your seat. It'll be fun. Plus, more importantly, I'll be there. Okay, so material design one. I think there's just one outstanding PR on this guy here that I wanted to take a look at. So we're going to take a look. View pull request. And of course, it opens up on the wrong one. Here we go. So I've already kind of previously glanced at this, so I'm going to hit approve and run just so it can start going. So the big thing that I'm looking for here is what could potentially be a breaking change. Now, I usually don't mind breaking changes, and that sounds weird. However, it does mean, so breaking changes have to be appropriately scheduled is kind of my big thing there. So the idea being that if it's going to be a breaking change, it's probably going to get delayed a little bit. This is one where there was a little bit of discussion ahead of time, and I think we're actually okay to not, like, this might end up being a somewhat breaking change, but a reasonable one. Like, I don't get too hung up because if you touch a public API, it's really hard to do it in a way that is backwards compatible. And with the way XAML works, that would mean everything was a major version rev. So sometimes I kind of skirt the is it a breaking change thing and make a judgment call about, okay, how likely is this to actually be a big deal? So, okay, so a couple key things here. One of the changes here is this change to use a dot instance instead. When you do a static resource, it creates an instance of your value converter. So, for example, like this guy here, right? I can't draw. Let's try this again. This guy here that was inside of a resource dictionary, this created up an instance of this Boolean divisibility converter class. The big issue here is this will, if you have a lot of things that might spin this resource dictionary, you spin multiple instances. One optimization that a lot of people like, and there was a question of should we do it here, and I'm like, I honestly don't mind doing it, is creating a static instance member. Or static instance member. Let's try that again. Static instance property so that you can reference it as a static, and then you only ever get one instance of the converter class created. The slight disadvantage of this is you still have to fall back to this old style if you want to change these values. But for common ones, it works great. And some converters don't have properties like this that you're setting on them. So it's like, yeah, sure. And you can see there's at least two. We can see there's instance and inverse instance, which is fine. As we'll just double check to make sure that the values on those match what I assume the expectations are. Once again here, the other thing is these are demo app changes, so these ones here don't concern me as much as the actual converters themselves. Let's see, namespace addition here to pull in the converters. Yep, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Those are all fine. We have 108 files. Oh boy. Oh boy, buckle up. Buckle up. This will be a big one. Okay. This is, I'm actually mildly impressed. Oftentimes, GitHub loses its mind when you get too big of a pull request, and things just start lagging. Big tip here. Both DevOps and GitHub have the concept of files that you viewed. Use these checkboxes on all big PRs. What will happen is if somebody pushes any commits to this branch, it will automatically untick the viewed box for any modified files. And so it means that when you go back and look at it a second time, assuming it needs a follow-up review, you don't have to look at everything all over again. You can just look at what's changed. And some people prefer to go through the commit list and do it that way, but I find this to be significantly easier. It is by far my preferred method. Plus, it makes the little progress bar update. And, you know, who doesn't love a good progress bar updating appropriately? That way you can see, you know, how far along you are. I think most of these are going to be pretty boring. Okay, so now we get to the actual interesting meat and potatoes here. So Boolean all converter, public static read-only instance. Oh, this is a field rather than a property. Trying to decide how I feel about that. It's not a big deal either way because the API of this remains the same. But it is an API that, well, this is internal, so it won't matter. This one we can change easy enough. But this one's public. This one's public. And the nice part is this one here, like it kind of matches my expectation. This is inverse. This one is giving me pause. So specifically what's giving me pause, and it may not be immediately apparent. So when this one calls, the true value is getting visible and the false value is getting collapsed. The inverse one, the false value is getting visible and the true value is getting hidden. So this one here gives me a bit of pause. I'm just going to mark that as something to come back to, simply because like I don't doubt that this was probably the usage that it was being done with true being hidden. But this naming, especially with this being public, gives me pause because I would expect inverse to be the inverse of this, and it's not. So that one gives me a bit of pause. I'm still not sold on the field idea named like a property. I mean, it's static and read only, but that's the other thing that gives me a bit of. I guess it doesn't really matter whether it's a property or field. Still, it's making me twitch. That one's internal. Don't care as much. And like this one here, where it doesn't have any properties to set, it doesn't make a big difference. This one's not a big deal either. This one should probably be sealed. The problem is if you take a class that was sealed or that wasn't sealed and seal it, that's technically a breaking change because anyone who's derived from that type now no longer compiles. I think it's rare that people derive from converters, but I have been surprised before. Specifically on converters that we've taken internal. Oftentimes what happens is people copy code out of the repository into their library because they need to tweak something. And then I make the poor assumption that it's, oh, clearly nobody would use this for anything. It's just like, well, unless they duplicated your style. So hours, minutes, seconds, that all makes sense. Arrow, iBeam instance. See, I like this naming better. I'm almost wondering on this one if a better name might be inverse hidden. or something. Like I'm thinking at minimum it's probably a naming issue. Let's see, elevation margin converter. This one is brand new. Might have to look at where this thing was being done. There's actually a fun pattern match that you can do here because this does type conversion. So it checks if value is elevation, and if it is, assigns the local, and then checks the local for if it's not here. I guess you could, the best you could do is with an or in there. I was thinking we could do property pattern match, but I forgot that this is enum. Get drop shadow with a bang. This one gives me pause. And specifically, I suspect the bang here is because this probably returns nullable, but we'll go look at those cases. I'll leave a marker there. Just because I want to look at it. And this one kind of has the same thing going on. Hey, Yonder Hornet, thank you very much. Yeah, for those people who are outside the United States, tomorrow is a major national holiday for us, known as Thanksgiving. My wife is actually upstairs busily preparing for it. We are hosting our families over at our place, so it will hopefully go well. All of our families typically get along great, so that is a huge blessing. And they, at least my parents, her parents, and grandparents all live within about 25 minutes. So it's not a horrible commute, which I realize sounds close for some people. But yes, we will. It should hopefully go well. The standard meal at Thanksgiving is typically turkey, though if you are like my father and hate turkey, the fallback option is typically ham or similar. So I personally prefer my turkey. I like turkey. I like my turkey. Ooh, invert bool converter is being made public. Boo, turkey. Okay, Yonder Hornet, do you fall back to ham? I think is the question, right? I think most people who dislike turkey usually will fall back on ham, or do you just abandon all hope and don't do any of it? I want to take a closer look at this. I'm curious why the invert bool converter needed to go public. Like, it's not a bad one to make public. It's also one where it's like, if we're going to make it public, I almost want to seal it at the same time. Just be, ham is the cheaper fallback. Occasionally prime rib, but that's pricey. Yeah, I will say, my children are at the stage where they love just pounding me with questions. Sometimes very random questions. And one of the ones this last week was if I could only eat one meat for the rest of my life, what would it be? And honestly, something like a nice prime rib, I'm like, oh man, that gets now we're gonna start talking the right cuts of beef, but a nice steak shop is that's hard to beat. If I had to pick one, it'd be something in that vicinity. The not converter instance, that's all fine. 0. Boy, looking at all these converters we have is making me realize we've got way too many converters. Let's see, nullability. See, this is another one where I'm looking at this going, these two don't invert, like this one doesn't inverse the other one. And this is where it's like, I get it, but it feels like this needs to be a different name, because inverse instance is not actually the inverse of instance. So that gives me pause. I'm trying to think of what the better name would be. I'm thinking it's got to be something like inverse hidden instance, not hidden instance. Maybe a not in the name. Maybe the words not and hidden make the most sense. That's the hard part. Like the running joke is always there's only two things that are difficult in computer science, right? Cache invalidation, naming things, and off by one errors. For what it's worth. And if you aren't laughing, it's probably because I've told that joke too many times. There. This is just, well, at least we're halfway through with only a handful of things to go back and look at. In this one, see, this one I like the name of better. String is empty instance. Is empty. Not empty. I think this thing is missing a not. Because I'm feeling like if I did not empty, it feels like it should be named in general, when you're naming conditional things, usually naming them in the positive is the way to go. One of the things that I hate so much about string is null or white space, right? Like it feels backwards, but what do I know? I'm just a developer. Okay, so this is where those other converters came from. They were lifted out of the elevation assist. Okay, that's fine. That makes me feel better. Okay, and then we dropped it out of here. And this was actually the fundamental change, right? So if we look at my face on the other side, so I'm not covering it up. All right, so this is inside of a big resource dictionary. And the problem being, and this is technically going to be a breaking change. This will be a breaking change for people. So this converter was declared as a resource inside of the generic.xaml dictionary, which is the one that gets imported for pretty much everybody who uses the library. This is the big one for the defaults that come in. You could, in theory, in your app, have a static reference to this converter. The problem being is if you do that and then we delete it, your static resource now fails and you're forced to redeclare it. I think I'm going to put a comment here just so that I go back and catch it in. Because I think this is going to be one of those cases where this is technically a breaking change. But I don't think I'm going to major version rev for it. I think I'm going to document it in release notes and call it a day. Because if you were leveraging this that way, and that's not the way it's typically supposed to be done, the workaround is either one, bring in the converter directly yourself, doing it this way and give it the same key, or use the new static one. I am curious. These ones all, so I think this is probably a mistake here. Because these ones are now all referencing the static instance. Yeah, so I think this is a mistake. We're going to just do this. See, DevOps gives me the option of leaving comments in a pending state so I can submit them as a group. So oftentimes in DevOps, I will type my comments, leave them pending until I'm all the way done, and then submit all the comments at the end, because sometimes I realize things as I'm going along and I'll correct stuff. GitHub, I tend to do this where I just leave the file unticked and I leave myself a blank box just as a way of coming back to it. Because all of these references are now using the static instance, which means this local style resource is, I don't believe, used anywhere. So like these ones here, same story, right? Those ones went away, but that is fine. Oh, actually, hang on. I want to make sure I catch the, because I want to make a list of all of these and put them in the release notes. That way I order clip brush round converter. Order clip brush round converter. Okay, so these are the same ones. I'm not gonna tag them twice. See where this gets me. Same two, same change, goes away. Okay, these ones here. Leave a comment to pick them up, but once again, just moving to the instant stuff. Great. Okay, and then these ones here. So division math converter, operation divide, divide instance. Yeah, see, these ones are easy ones to do. And then the point value converter, easy mode. Oy vey, there's a lot of converters dropping here. It's interesting that these ones didn't drop. Oh, are they? Oh, these ones didn't drop because they're setting properties. Got it. Got it. Okay. Fine. Let's make the list. Tag those ones up, and then we'll bring these things down. Boolean divisibility converter, we've picked that up previously. Boolean border clip brush opacity, we've picked up all of those previously. Just checking through all of those. Boolean divisibility converter, we've already picked it up. Good change. Shadow opacity mask converter. I think we got this one, but I'm not sure. I'm going to leave myself a marker. Brush round is dark. I don't know about is dark. We're going to keep that on the list. Boolean nullability, brush round converter. Yep, all of those we've caught before. Large diffs not rendered by default. Lovely. Lovely. This is almost assuredly one that we need to pick up. I'm just going to collapse it and then keep going. These are the color conversion ones. That is a fair one to change. Combo box, lovely. Brush round converter. And then a whole metric ton of stuff. But this is inside the control resources, so this one doesn't count. Because those ones weren't previously exposed. That's all fine. I'm mostly interested in the deletions rather than the additions. That's fine. We can take that. Yeah, I don't remember that one in the list. Okay. This one here, the indent makes me wonder if it's nested or not. Oh yeah, that is, well, that is a, where is it? Can't tell what it's inside of. Yeah, it's inside the control template resources, so that doesn't count. That was a style resource, not exposed. Style resource, not exposed. Great. Easy change. This is one of the beauties of having things not always public or out there, is it makes it much easier to make a change without the fear of breaking somebody. Because there's always that running joke of any change you make is always going to break somebody's workflow. There's that lovely XKCD comic. Okay, but we've cleared 70 of 108 of these. That's not bad. This one immediately grabs my attention. Oy vey. List view template converter. Wow. This one gives me a lot of pause. Specifically because this is a... Oh, it's a control template. I'm surprised this is a converter. I guess it's probably a control template converter. Because normally with like data templates, you have data template selectors instead. I guess there's not really a control template selector, so a converter is probably what makes the most sense. We already had it flagged. This just moved inside the style resources so that they weren't exposed. Yeah, I'm going to be shocked if anybody was referencing those. That one I suspect is a pretty safe one. Those ones we've already picked up. check those boxes. We are going to have a heck of a release this time around. This is control template resources. I see the tag closed there, so I don't care. The other nice part is because we've got the tests and the UI tests, I'm not real concerned about these things breaking or this change breaking much. If it does, it means I didn't write good enough tests. Inverted null visibility converter. I'm marking this one because this one I think probably got switched to that invert one, but the invert one was, I believe, hidden rather than collapsed. That might be, it's those types of changes where it's going to be a subtle bite, which is not always great. Let's see, control template resources, the namespace switch. Oh, right. Okay. Did I flag anything here? I did. Let's just collapse that one. Circular progress bar converter. Got it. Okay, so just the namespace change to be able to access the instances. These ones are clearly going to be breaking changes as well. Great. Lovely. Okay, is round is dark. I know we've already picked those ones up on previous comment threads. Yeah, I mean, I think this is just trying to decide if this is just something I need to get over or if it's actually worth a sticking point or not. I just get weird when I see fields named like properties that aren't properties. I'm trying to think if there's actually a failure case anywhere though. Like the only failure case I can come up with where it really matters is somebody tries to bind, but in order to bind to it, you'd be setting it as the source of a binding, which you'd still use an X-static and it would still just work. It's like I can't think of a failure case where it would be problematic. I don't know if we've picked up the slider tooltip one yet. I'm gonna have to go back and make the big long massive list before I merge this. That's gonna be fun. Yeah, that's definitely something we haven't seen yet. At least I don't think I recall seeing it. Worst case scenario, I'm making the list and checking it twice. Gonna find out which converters are naughty and nice. And yes, I have cast my role as Santa in that joke. Those people who are laughing. Maybe I'll see if I can find my Santa hat. I think last year I had my Santa hat around my December streams just for fun. Because why not? Style resources, not breaking. Boom. Just going to straight X statics on all of those. Great. Boom. We got here. Was this one exposed? I can't tell from just that. No. Control template resources. You're fine. Let's see, you were exposed, but I believe that both the math and the other one were picked up before. And this is a heck of a refactor. Okay, this one I'm flagging. And this one is going to be weird because this is the built-in one to WPF. Right, you'll note no prefix in there. And it gets weird because this library also has its own Boolean to visibility converter. But this library only has one because we allow you to specify the true false values to be any enum member you want on the visibility one. So it's a little bit cleaner. But this is one of those real subtle jerk move ones. And this is why we shouldn't have had them exposed in the first place, because when people reference it, it'd be really easy to mess it up. Okay, obsolete converters. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I misread. Oh, dude. I think Joris is awesome. Oh, Joris, you get some huge points. Okay, so all of my comments where it was, oh, we'll go back and document this, he handled them. He handled them preemptively. So if you want back the old ones, all the ones he deleted, he put through right here, and you can easily get them back. This is amazing. Okay, well, that's going to eliminate most of my comments. I completely did not catch that. I still want to look at a handful of those, the ones that I think might have the wrong values. But that is freaking amazing. Why did we do it like this? So here's what's weird about this, right? Is we're inside of a resource dictionary. We access the merge dictionaries collection, which is a way of having a resource dictionary include other resource dictionaries. In that merged resource dictionary collection, we instantiate a new resource dictionary to add in a few converters so that this outside resource dictionary can access them. Why not just put those converters straight inside the main resource? Like, why jump through the extra hoops? I don't know why we did that. Feels weird. Feels wrong. Okay, well, that made a big difference. Okay, so a couple things I want to do real quick before I go back through these comments. First of all, this thing is going to get tagged 5.2, and then we're going to put the release notes on it because this is going to be a key one to pick up. Look at that. Test pass. Nope, not project milestones. 5.2s. Labels. We are going to put release notes on this. And I want to put breaking change on it. Right, so those two need to be added on to here. And then let's go back through some of these comments because I think a few of these we want to address. So that's fine. I think I just need to get over myself. Okay, so this one here is a naming problem. Right? I think we want a different name here since it is not actually the inverse of instance. What about, how about thoughts on, let's see. So you do Boolean divisibility converter. False is visible, so it should have a not. And then true is hidden. Not hidden instance. Oh wait, there is a pending state here. I'm an idiot. I said it wrong earlier when I was talking about GitHub and DevOps. I've got them backwards and I did it wrong like an idiot. Okay, great. Hang on, that's a sign of a lack of Mountain Dew. Okay, the Git drop shadow. I want to take a look at that real quick. There's a, let me see here. Do we have this checked out? Add remote and checkout, please. Not find ref to check out. Well, here's a hint. Oh, there's two refs. Interesting. Okay. Well, either way, they're pointed at the same commit. That'll work. So this was elevation assist. That wasn't the API that was being invoked. Elevation info. Not here, is it? Elevation info. Get drop shadow. Yeah, so this is null because this dictionary might not have a value. And part of the reason for this, like this is an enum, right? And the enum has values 0 up through whatever, right? And I believe we've handled all of them here, which is good, yeah. But 0 returns null. But you know what else returns null? 42. Right? So if I do elevation info, get drop shadow, elevation of 42, right? That will return null as well. Now, should this ever be happening? Probably not. Probably not. But I worry, well, elevation margin converter. What was it before? Was it in here? Yeah. Did it have the bang? Okay, so it's not a regression of any kind. Okay. Well, we're gonna ignore it then, because it's not a regression. That's what it was before. It'll be good enough for now. Gives me pause though. Feels like there might be a mistake. Let's see here. I'm gonna propose we seal this public because it's less problematic for me. I can unseal easier than I can seal. So if we start sealed, when we go public, it makes my life much easier. Let's see. Noble to visibility converter. Hey, Izzy, welcome. So currently reviewing a pull request on the material design and XAML project. Contributor who's done a bunch of PRs in the past did a decently sized refactor. We've got 108 files. Breaking apart all of the converters, because previously in our resource dictionaries, the converters were just added as top level resources, which technically exposed them inside of everyone's project unnecessarily. So we are stripping that out to avoid conflicts. 42 is the answer life and everything. It can't be null. Love it. But we're just going through and double checking a handful of these things because there's a few of these that are giving me pause. This one I think was easy. Text field hint visibility converter. String is empty. Name of this inverted, right? I'm not reading this backward, right? String is empty, right? If you did string is empty, you would expect is empty to return visible, right? At least that's my reading of this, right? If I had a string is empty converter, I would expect is empty to be my visible case. So I think this name is just backwards. String is not empty instance, I think, right? That way on empty collapsed, on not empty visible. I think it's just a name thing. I think that's all that is. Okay, I'm going to start collapsing these as I run into them. Okay, so I don't need to worry about all these ones that I left open, just does this mean in my next update I'm going to have to pull the converters into my custom controls now too? Maybe. It depends. If you were relying on the presence of these converters existing, and this is going to be one of those, it's technically a breaking change, but we're going to document it. But he added in this obsolete converters. There goes a full sprint in the office. No. In theory, you add a resource dictionary. So if you want them back and you need them, there is this resource dictionary that exists, and you can just include this in your project. And then there's all the converters that were previously exposed, just sitting right there for you. You're off to the races, right? So if you need them, this is the other way to do it. The other thing that's being added is a lot of these converters are being given static like instance properties on them. Like if we go back up here, right, pick on any of them. So if you want to avoid allocating more than one instance of the converter, because in a lot of cases you don't need multiple instances of a converter, you can just reference the static property and then you only get one. It is mildly more efficient because you're allocating fewer instances of your converter. Otherwise, if they live as a thing in a resource dictionary, every time that resource dictionary gets spun up, which for a lot of them will only be once, but sometimes if they exist and they're like brought in from like data templates or similar, you can get multiple. Right? So most of the time you're only getting one anyway, which is why I say this is a mild improvement. But breaking them out of the public resource dictionaries that are just accidentally being included, it means that there won't be naming collisions either between the converters our templates use and the ones in somebody's app. So I think that's the bigger gain in my mind is I'm no longer accidentally having naming collisions. Oh, still full of sprint. Oh, in that case, Izzy, I will make sure that my release notes include that it should take a full sprint. Let's see. I think this is the same thing as what I had done up above. What did I put up here? Yeah. I think because this is Boolean to visibility converter. This one's very similar, nullable to visibility converter. Yeah, so we're gonna just put that one there as well. For the most part, this is very well done. That one I think I left open because I just wanted to document. That one just left open because I wanted to document. Same thing there. Probably the same thing here. I'm not missing anything further. But most of these ones went through. Yeah, so most of the time, if you want to leverage the cool new stuff, the change will go from static resource to just that. Or like I said, if you want the 5-minute fix, just reference the other resource dictionary and you're off to the races. But I do want to make sure that I go through and do it. Like, still don't understand why we did this. What worries me is that past Kevin may have done this, and past Kevin was an idiot. So, there's that. Okay, I think that gets me through there. Keep this thing sitting up for the moment. Okay, yeah, that's fine there. That's fine there. More importantly, the build all passed, so I know all of my UI tests passed. So, there's that. That gives me a lot of confidence. I usually prefer reviewing PRs after I've seen the pipeline pass, because it means there's only so much bad you could have possibly done. These ones were already inside the style resources. And a lot of them, Izzy, were already being hidden from you, so hopefully there's probably not that many that you need to pull in, would be my hope. That would be my hope. Okay. I was hoping to get through this and one other thing before Kalen jumps on, but we'll see. We will see. I did not look at the size of this PR before I was like, oh yeah, there's only one PR to review. I didn't realize, like that I did not register when I was thinking. That part was okay, and then obsolete converters are already marked as viewed. Great. Nope. So which ones did I leave open? Just the ones that I had on? Okay, so let's see. Great work. A couple small comments on naming things. Past Izzy was an idiot too. Yesterday I managed to fix an issue we've had for 6 months. Turns out I just needed to remove the quantum effects of the state machine. I'm assuming the quantum effects of the state machine is hyperbole. I'm hoping. Let's see, just a couple small comments on naming things. I will sure we add information on change to the release notes. Great. So we're gonna submit that. Suppose I could put it as request changes. It just feels a little, Okay. There's that. Okay. Now, sneak peek at some stuff. So, let's see, don't save. Oh, Yonder Hornet, thank you, I appreciate that. It landed on a nice one as well. Oop, that's not supposed to be open, neither's that. Okay, well, that was bad. This is why you have trouble streaming. Okay, let's back this up. So, I was looking for a different window. One that involved templates. Okay, so there's this, and I have my templates. No, not templates. This guy. This is the guy. So I've got my templates repository that is very near and dear to my heart. And recently, during my day job, I have been building an Avalonia app. And Avalonia is awesome. Straight awesome. For somebody like me who with a strong WPF background, Avalonia feels like a better WPF in a lot of ways, which is pretty cool. The fact that it's cross-platform and I can build mobile apps within that kind of thing, that's just all bonus. Oh, wow. So Izzy's quantum state. Thought it was both dead and alive at the same time and kept resetting while halfway through initializing an important background handler thread, but only when a very specific set of state was reached. Ouch. Okay, so fun story. I was chasing a bug this last week as well, and I was getting... The log that I was getting was a 500 HTTP response from one of my health probe endpoints. The thing is, my health probe endpoint literally had return healthy. That was the sum total of my endpoint. And I stared at that for a minute, went, huh, how did that produce a 500 in my logs? That one took a little while to track down. Not shockingly, my code was not throwing. There was a very short timeout on the caller, and then it would record a 500. But I sat there and stared at that for a minute, went, boy, this code really doesn't feel like it should be able to throw a 500. But on the note of my Avalonia templates, I have started down the path of updating my Avalonia template because I take the stance that I think templates should be a little more flushed out. I think they should be opinionated. Middleware can also do that. Yes, that is true. In this case, there was at least no custom middleware running on my service. But I like my templates to be full-featured, take opinions, right? I can understand why sometimes the built-in templates, people try to not be too opinionated. You don't want to alienate people. People can pick, whatever libraries they want to work with. Like, my opinion is people want to see what a good solution looks like. And the people who know enough to say, hey, I don't like that library, I want to swap it out with this, are probably not the ones to use my templates anyway, right? Most of the time, I gear these things up for what my preferences are. And so you can take them or leave them. And at minimum, I think there's a lot of good stuff in the templates as well. But there's something in this particular one that is interesting. and I'm contemplating porting it to my. Let me Let me open this one up in code, because I've been contemplating be a workable real life POC app. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I'm going for. So one of the things, and this bites in WPF as well as Avalonia, is that there is not the way you structure an app for like navigation or kind of that overall view of things is kind of left up to you. .NET MAUI, they came out with App Shell, which was their way of saying, hey, we understand that a lot of apps kind of structure in the following ways. We're going to build App Shell to be kind of your go-to for all of those common pattern solutions. Like, it's not built as a you always do this, it's a 100% solution. It's built as a hey, we can hit 80% of you and knock out all the easy cases for you, and then the rest of you who want to do something custom, just don't use it, do something custom. Great, have fun, right? And Avalonia technically has something else in there that they go with reactive UI as another option to be able to do it. Oh, Yonder Hornet, thanks again. I really appreciate this. And so they have that option as well. And the only thing that bothers me is it requires you to go into reactive UI. And I don't mind reactive UI. It's just never been quite my cup of tea. It's a perfectly fine library. Other people use it. It's great, right? I have no qualms about it. It's just never felt like the way I want to do it. I'm thankful for. Well, I appreciate you sharing your thankfulness. I do my best to try to share a little bit of it. So something I came up with on an app that I did recently, I kind of took a little bit of inspiration from .NET MAUI, but it was kind of an idea for how to handle kind of that top level shell navigation-y bits, but do it in a way that allows you to still do your custom stuff. Because the thing I don't like about .NET MAUI is it's really great right up until you want to do something custom with it, and then it gets hard, right? It's got a few knobs and widgets of things you can change, but it's if you want to like grow up to a full custom thing, you have to scrap it and jump there. Like, it gets hard to do really advanced stuff with it. So something I started down, and I apologize, this will be Avalonia, because Avalonia is cool, and this is very much a work in progress. So I will. This is a side branch. I'm adding in some stuff from my other from other projects that I've done that I've liked, and I've been bringing them through. I will say I got a really great kick out of. Hang on, I'll show this too. Let's see. Avalonia GitHub. So Material Avalonia just kicked out their 3.8.0 release, and I nearly died laughing at the release notes. It's all me. I got a great laugh out of this. But I had agreed, because when I started using this library, this is a port of the Material Design and XAML library, but for Avalonia. And it ported a version of the Material Design library, like, I don't know, it's probably like 2 years old or something, that they had initially grabbed to port. So they didn't have my color refactor, and not everything got ported across. A lot of it did, but not everything. And some of it was like judgment calls and that kind of thing. It's like, great, fine. Not my library, have fun. But one of the key things that they were lacking was the ability to do the equivalent of the custom color theme that we have, where you can set a primary and secondary arbitrary color, and the rest of it works. This was locking you down to the Material Design color palettes, which is fine for a lot of people, but it's like, well, a lot of companies kind of have their own custom themes, and so there was a discussion. I posted on it, and now the 3.8.0 release has it built in. Great. So my template is going to be pushing off of the Fluent theme and bringing that one in as well. But the idea that I've come up with is this idea of having the concept of, and I stole the name from .NET MAUI, and I think I'm going to end up breaking the dialogue stuff out of here rather than being it part of here. But the idea of having some kind of concept of navigation, because quite often a view model needs to be able to say, hey, I'd like to navigate here, right? And in other apps, I've sometimes solved that with an iMessenger call where it posts a message, which we'll see is still possible here. But that always kind of left me a little weird feeling. The other thing I will call out is I have this navigation request class. So let's look at that. So the big idea here, yeah, why do people keep trying to sell you on the Fed UI projects? Um, yeah, and I agree. There's something to be said about stuff that you know, and that's part of why, honestly, why Avalonia is. It's taken me a very long time to even play around with much stuff beyond WPF because I'm real productive in WPF. I can crank apps out real fast, and I'm very confident in my ability to do so. You throw me in a new area, it's like, ah, crap. Now I got to figure out how to do stuff. Um, but again, like Avalonia's felt really nice. But the idea with this navigation request is then a view model can say, hey, I want to navigate to a thing. And you can see here, I haven't quite flushed the whole thing out because like the idea would be you put in, you know, various navigation stuff, right? And even though I've got these things named push, pop, and that kind of thing, the general idea here is what that actually means uh, doesn't need to be so tightly constrained, right? Maybe that's inside of a tab. Maybe it switches a tab. Who knows, right? Like the person handling this request can kind of dictate what that outer structure looks like. But I also don't like where in like some of my other apps, I've requested navigation and I've had the view model pass in like the view type or the view model type. And I've always felt a little weird about that because then it tightly couples my two view models together that I've always felt was a little weird, right? So this puts a small layer of indirection in the middle of it, and it's not even that much indirection because it's tightly coupled. But it means I now have a list of things that I build up inside of my app that represent where I can navigate to in my app. And so just to be clear, I've built one app using this pattern and I kind of like it. I think I like it. I built one app with it. So I'm going to build another one and make sure I still like it after the second one. But I think I like it. I like it enough that I'm going to put it into this template and build a second app with this template and see if I still like it then. That's kind of my game plan. Because it also has this idea of sometimes when you navigate to a location, sometimes you want to pass some data along, right? You think the master detail type navigation, right? I tapped on the item in the list. Now I want to open up a new page and I want to show the details of that item, which means I got to pass that item along. The thing I do not like about like the navigation to .NET MAUI is they do like query string stuff. And that like, yuck, no. I don't like that. That feel no. I want to pass an object, darn it. Like, and I don't want to have to jump through weird hoops. And so the idea here, right, is if I had, you know, public static navigation request, you know, item details, I could have it take in an item, right? And then it would be, you know, Copilot's now showing off and being a jerk, right? But it might be something like this, right? Where it's this method returns a navigation request. The navigation request, if somebody wants to navigate here, they're going to have to pass an item in, and then it knows about the view type. And then if the navigation request is one of these generic ones, we don't expose out, right? The outside only ever sees navigation request. If the view implements this iDataView thing, well, okay, when we go through and load up this view, we'll actually call load data and we'll pass the data all the way through. Very simple, very nice. It feel like it gives a nice injection point to get data from view model A to view model B without a lot of thinking. Right? So this makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I kind of like this structure because now if I decide to kill a page in my app, I kill this and it's a very simple compile time error. The other thing that this gives me is I ran into a situation where I wanted to use a SQLite database, and I was using EF. And I wanted a separate SQLite database based upon which user had logged into the app. And because I was storing them in files, I wanted to change the file path based on the user. And I could have done like DB context factory and that kind of thing to say, okay, well, what I'm going to do is register a factory, and based upon the logged in user, the factory is going to get a new instance and all of that jazz. And I realized, I'm like, kind of what I'm really looking for is certain sections of my app. I actually want to spin a separate DI scope, because like in ASP.NET Core, you get a separate DI scope for each incoming request, and that's the understood scope of where things go. And unless you do something custom, that's what you get, right? In a thick client application, we generally only ever have one scope. There's never a separate scope, and it's up to you if you want a separate one. And I realized, I'm like, you know what? At least in my apps, based upon certain navigation locations, like if you go to a new window or you go to a particular page, right? I might want to spin a new DI scope. So I just left myself built-in functionality to spin a new DI scope. Okay, so let's see how the thing works. Okay, so this has some of the material Avalonia stuff built in, but it functionally looks like WPF, right? The dialog host, they built the dialog host to look like the real one. Oh, why did I leave this in? That's dumb. That's a mistake. I shouldn't have left that one in. But you'll note there's a grid. It's named root, and it just hangs out, right? That's it. All the interesting stuff happens here. And you'll note this is the guy that implements our shell, but it could be anybody, right? This is a navigation stack. I have grand aspirations of there being like a tabbed view version of this. Like all of those cases that .NET MAUI tried to shove into one thing, my opinion is those should be individual composable components. Right? You should have a stack component, and you should have like a tab component, and I should be able to say inside of a tab I want to put a stack, and I should have all of that. Right? That's the way I want this to work. The composability kind of gets a little weird when we start talking about how this stuff works with the service provider, and you'll note it's also a recipient of that navigation request class. So if rather than passing it straight to app shell, I can post it with a messenger, I get the same result. Huzzah. There's another dirty trick that I'm abusing. So Avalonia, they have a previewer, which is roughly the equivalent of a designer, except for you can't interact with it in a designy way, but you can interact with it in a UI type way, which is kind of fun. But it requires a default constructor, not unlike WPF, right? The UI controls require default constructors for the designers to work, because they like to use, WPF's case, design time builds, Avalonia's case, real builds, which is both a blessing and a curse. It's kind of annoying. But that's not the Microsoft way. Carefully, they don't un-MVP you. I know. It's a little different. Like, Maui feels like it's struggling a little bit. But they did get, for people who didn't notice, there was a recent announcement where Syncfusion has been doing a lot of collab work with .NET MAUI, and they pushed out a lot of stuff. Like, Syncfusion was like, hey, we want to help you. We want MAUI to be awesome. We're going to throw a ton of resources and dev hours at this to make that a reality. And then they did, which is kind of cool. So MAUI may start getting better because they got a big influx in help that they were not expecting. Or at least I don't think they were expecting it. But this also abuses another fun thing about the standard DI provider that sometimes people overlook. I have two constructors here, and the Microsoft dependency injection is greedy, right? It grabs the constructor with the most parameters. So I can cheat and get away with knowing that this constructor will be grabbed by DI and this one won't. So it's kind of a dirty trick. So I can just null bang this one and kind of ignore it for now, just to tell the compiler to shut up on the warnings, and then DI my way to victory here. But then down here, I can get into some fun cases. We're going to ignore some of these because some of these are just dealing with Avalonia specific stuff. Hey, yeah, top level, blah, 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 back button press, blah, blah, blah. Here's the interesting navigation bits, right? So you navigate async, right? It grabs, it creates the view control, right? And in this case, navigate is blow away the stack, right? I want to, it's not a push or a pull, it's start here. Like in the case of like a login page, right? You don't want a stack, right? It's just no, go to the login page. This is a starting point. And maybe post login, there's not a stack. It's now you're inside the app. You know, you've got kind of these two parallel stack type situation, right? Pops items off the stack, and you'll note there's this cool little trick here. So let's look at down here on add view. All right, so add view, we come in here. If we are starting a new service scope, right, and you'll note we've got the service provider. And so this guy here got the service provider passed in via his constructor. And at least in this setup, this guy is a root level control inside of this demo app. So he's getting the root level service provider to play with. But when we go to add a view, we pass in the service provider. If new scope wants us, or if we want a new scope, we're going to create a scope, set our service provider to that scope service provider. We're going to create the view from that service provider, which may have been a scoped one, which is fine, right? We then store that service scope onto our view. So there's a cheap little trick here with an attached property. Private attached property, just so we can go ahead and cache that, right? Because while that view is there, somebody needs to hold on to this service scope so that we can clean it up. Because we made a scope, we need to make sure we dispose of the scope, right? So we come in here, right? Set some stuff up on the grid because it knows about where things are going. Like these are the default members too, so it's not a big deal, but I wanted to be explicit. I also wanted to be real explicit and just not allow views to change their horizontal or vertical alignment and just say, nah, you're getting, if you're inside of this guy, this is what you're getting, right? And then it adds it right on in to the grid and we're done, right? And we pass it back. And so we get the view back, we rip through and remove out everyone but the guy that we just added. Right? And then we go through and we say load data async. And we're off to the races, right? Because this then leverages our view that we had in there as well, right? Pop shouldn't come as too big of a shock to people. We're popping an item off the stack. The only thing that gets interesting is this service scope. Again, we have to pull that out. If we pop something with a service scope off, oh, there's a bug here. I've got a bug. Oh, I just see this is why this is not here yet. This needs to actually make sure it when it's removing the children. Let's see. Children sub 0. So if this guy has a service scope, we need to clean it up before we throw it away. Yeah, okay, good. Good. I'm kind of thinking that I may want to wrap this up in a method so that both of these guys can leverage it. But whatever. We'll see about that in a later point. But pops things off the stack, cleans up the service scope, and then it's also going through and enabling and marking visibility stuff on it just to make sure. I ran into some cases where I had views where I had like set a background and so things were showing through. I'm like, I don't want to deal with any of that. Just hide all the things, right? And yes, it's async because I thought I needed it to be async, and I don't really need it to be async, but I didn't want to change that, so there was nice symmetry with pop and push both being async. Push needs to be because we call the load data async, and that's shelling out, and that made load data from somewhere, right? Push does kind of the exact opposite of what you would expect. The thing that gets interesting about push has to go and look for an existing service scope. So if you push an item onto the stack, and your prior view up in the stack had a scope created, we walk up looking for that scope to use it instead, right? So we're either going to use our top level service provider or we're going to use an existing scope. That way we can build it up and then all the same stuff what we saw before. And then again, I'm thinking I might pull the show dialog stuff out, or at least do a different interface. The fact that the dialog host is also in here is kind of, it's not very composable, right? Like, again, my goal here is I want some composable things in my template so that I can compose them together in the way that I want for my apps, and then have it just work nice. So this is my grand idea of how this ends up working. That's my thought. That's where I'm. So if people have feedback on this, this is something I'm kind of mulling through and building out, and am planning on, like, this is currently sitting in my Avalonia update branch. Let's see, fixing bug with service scope. Put my big head back over on the other side. I'll push that there, because I do very much like this structure. The Kalen should be actually popping on here any moment, so we'll. If he doesn't, we may dive in and look at this template a little bit further, or I may just immediately jump over and work on some of the Velopack stuff. There's a handful of things there that we were going to take a look at as well. So, but the one thing that I really like with this pattern is it's not specific to any UI framework. So I may end up porting it over and doing the same thing inside my WPF template as well, I think. My WPF template right now is a little thin. Like, you get your main window, you get some setup, but it doesn't handle any navigation. It doesn't do any of that stuff, and I feel like I want something like that. At minimum, I think what I want is at least an option to flip it on. That's kind of my thinking. All right, checking to see my phone is blowing up with notifications. Why is it blowing up with notifications? Don't care. Don't care. Don't care. Don't care. Okay. I think there's that there. Okay, so I wanted to do one more thing, and it may require doing something real funky here in a second. Yeah, so the navigation thing works out well. I may bring it as an option into here. I may also bring it as an option in my Avalonia one, because I realize some people are going to be like, I don't like any of that stuff. Like, give me a switch to turn it off, or I don't use your templates. Like, yeah. My templates work perfectly for the intended audience, which is me. So they are flawless. My biggest complaint is that they're flawless for past Kevin, and I want them to be flawless for future Kevin, and I don't know what future Kevin wants. He's really hard to get requirements from, which is disappointing. Okay, so let's jump over here. Oh, Kalen's not here. I want to grab. Okay, I want to jump over to here. Let's see. The main detection stuff from last time made it through. For those people who are interested, that actually merged. So, yay. There is this guy here and the Wizard UI one that we're gonna look at. So, this one here. So, for people who aren't familiar with it, Velopack.io. I'm one of the people working on it. It is what I will call if you've worked with Click Once or the Squirrel installer, think of it as what I will call a better version. I'm a biased opinion though, so but I'll call it a better version of both of those. More configurable, typically faster. It comes with a nice update framework that you're in control of. So unlike Click Once, where you can only really tell it, do it when my app starts or shuts down. it actually gives you an option to have a nice SDK, and you control the update flow. So you can plug it into your app where it makes sense and have it work nice, right? Which is great. I think that's what most people want. One of the other things that it so conveniently comes with is the ability to do signing. And in this case, this is signing for Windows only. So I'm going to clarify that, because we have the option of using Azure Trusted Signing, which is great. And I wrote some code that uses Azure Trusted Signing. And it's kind of a pain in the rear. Well, testing it's a pain in the rear. Where is my... No, it is packaging tests, trusted signing tests. Okay, so this is going to look funky to some people. So for people who haven't seen it, XUnit has this cool NuGet you can grab, and I guess it from XUnit. I'm trying to remember. If it's a third-party thing or not. Let's see. Yeah, XUnit skippable fact. So the idea here is, rather than just having a test that's a fact, you can have something that's skippable, and more importantly, unlike regular fact, which you can only set skip to be a string with a reason, right? This lets you do custom stuff to decide, hey, should I skip this test? Right? So for example, if you're not on Windows, well, I'm sorry, this requires sign tool exe. Sign tool requires Windows, therefore you can only run this on Windows. But then I need this thing to reach out. So Azure Trusted Signing, for people who haven't seen it. Trusted Signing. This it? Yeah, this thing here. I think Microsoft has decided that they just got annoyed at how expensive and ridiculously complicated it was to do signing stuff. And so, where's the pricing page? Pricing's insane. The trusted signing pricing, right? If you compare this signing pricing to anything else, this is pennies on the dollar compared to most competition, which is insane to me. So for a relatively cheap price, you can do signing. And the key quota here is how many signs do you need to do per month, right? For the average person, 5,000 signing requests per month is probably really, really low, right? Now, the thing to be aware of is this: if you like sign a bunch, an output directory with a bunch of files in it, each file is going to hit one of those requests. Right? So if you've got like 300 files in an output directory, well, if you're running CI/CD and you trigger this on every single time, well, you could hit that, right? Probably should fix your pipeline so that you aren't doing that, but it is theoretically possible. So be aware of that. The other thing is Azure Trusted Signing does signature verification, right? And so it's not actually seeing your whole file; it's getting a hash and signing that, and then embedding that. It also is a great way to previously people who would put out a signed app, they would still get that obnoxious UAC prompt in Windows because they hadn't built up reputation yet. And so you'd have that period of time where your app would be building rep and users would still have to basically click through that. This dodges that. And Microsoft can do it because they're Microsoft and they own Windows. It's cheating. Absolute cheating. But if you want an easy way past it, it's a quick and easy way to go through and do it. Yeah. So anyway, Velopack as an installer leverages this. Ooh, what would you like to work on? Ooh, that's a good question. Sorry. Let's see here. All right. We'll see how this goes. We may switch gears. Sounds like Kaylin's going to be ready in about 5. So there is an outstanding feature request to have this working, and the goal here is to have this test work. So we have a trusted signing instance, and the way we sign into it is we have to be authenticated with Azure to be able to do it. So for people who haven't seen it before, default Azure credentials from the Azure Identity NuGet package is kind of the standard way to go through and do it, right? So you'll see a lot of times where people just go var creds gets new default Azure credential, boom, right? And just done, right? Like this is the bone dead simple, hey, I need my app to authenticate with Azure, figure it out. I don't want to think real hard, right? Because default Azure credentials has a options class that it takes in, right? With a whole metric ton of, oh, it can't figure out which constructor I want. Default credential options. I want that one, right? So yeah, thanks. Great. And so by default, it tries a whole bunch. It searches a lot of different sources to say, I'll find the right creds. Don't worry, I'll figure it out for you, right? So it starts walking through and says, well, do I have an environment, CLI, interactive browser, Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code? Maybe there's a token cache. If I'm already out on Azure, maybe I'm a managed identity and I'm off to the race. Yeah. So this is the easy way of doing it. It's also what SignTool.exe uses in order to authenticate to be able to do the signing. So for this test to work, we kind of cheekily go through and say, well, we're going to see if we can go ahead and get the creds. And I personally turn off a lot of the cred options because in the default case, because they add slowness. And I don't expect a lot of them to work because I am usually signed into Visual Studio with one account, but then I'm working on Azure with a different account. Like it gets, yeah, because I've got like one account that I use to get my MSDN for my license to use the Visual Studio, but then I'm sometimes working with somebody else's Azure and they want me to use that account, so I've got to have that account side. It's a mess. So oftentimes what I do is I'll just use my Azure CLI credentials. It's like I will install the Azure CLI, I will do AZ login, I will log into the account I need to use. Just don't think too hard. And then the environmental one is just to make the pipeline happy, right? Because at some point you have to feed, like in order for this test to run on our pipeline, the pipeline has to be able to authenticate to the Azure. So there are pipeline secrets that get shoved into environment variables that this guy then finds and goes, ooh, I'll use that instead because, there is no Azure CLI one. And oof, off to the races. And I win. So what I was hoping to do is see if I could, because the PR is open and approved and ready to merge. I want to make sure that I had to do a rebase, and I just don't trust myself. Feels like it's too close to I might screw this up situation. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we're gonna get this guy compiling, and then we may switch gears and do some of the back end stuff. But I don't think I'm signed into the right account. But you know what? Let's just send it. Send it. Worst case scenario, test fails or gets skipped. And that's the beauty of being able to do this skippable fact is you can then write arbitrary code to say, you know what? Go do this thing and figure it out. And we should probably document this better because I know people who are unfamiliar with Azure and the Azure CLI, this is probably not sufficient. It's also probably needs to be spelled out to people that unless you are part of our Velopack Azure, like you can't run this test. Like this test will get skipped for all outside contributors because, right? You're not in my Azure, so no. I suppose if you want to fork the project, you could point this at your own endpoint and right and figure out where that's going to be. Like you could stand up your own code signing in EastUS and connect to it with a valid account and be off to the races. So yeah, we got skipped. So test, let's go test Explorer. Down here, yeah, trusted signing, can sign. Skip was thrown. Okay, so this is not okay. Let's see. Trusted signing can only run on Windows. Right, so I want that. Trusted signing test can only run when you are signed in with a Velopack with an account that is part of Velopack's Azure tenant. Is that how you spell tenant? No. See, this is why we need spell checkers. Why I need spell checkers. So, replace tenant with there. Thank you. Why do you hate me? Do we not have a spell check? Might not have. I might not have the spell check stuff. I don't think we do. I don't see my typical exclusion list stuff, but we want this thing to have, right? So I expect this message now when I run at least. That way it gives me a useful error. Just like that's one of the things XUnit does that I really appreciate is if you try to set the skip attribute, it makes you set a reason. I wish this thing forced you to set a reason. Yeah, rather than just saying, "Oh, we skipped." It's like, well, I don't like that reason's optional. I feel like it should be required. If you're skipping a test, you should have to give a reason. I don't know. Maybe sometimes this condition is clear enough. Like this could be argued to be clear enough. Okay, so how we're doing this? Let's see. So you're gonna have to trust me. I am on a separate machine. Login. Use device code. Okay, so I'm going to grab this. I am going to open this. I'm going to move this onto a separate screen. So you're just going to have to trust me that I am doing the sign in necessary. And I am going to sign in appropriately. Yes, I'm attempting to sign in. And it hopefully finds it. Choose my subscription. Great. I select the description I want. I hit clear. Easy. Let's see. Terminate batch job. Yes. Easy account show name. Sorry. I'm gonna get this going in a situation where I can actually show it. Let's see. Very user. There. That should be fine. There. Okay. So right. So if I go this, huzzah. Right. Now I am signed in with an appropriate account. This should now work. Should now work. Now it is possible. Well, we'll see. We'll see how this thing goes. Did it skip again? Can only be when you're signed in. Why we know signed in? Kind of want to look at this exception. Why we know signed in? because I did sign in. And at one point in time, this test passed. But this is what's giving me pause, is I had to rebase, and the very real chance I botched something. Okay, so let's see here. Chained credential failed, which is fine because then chained credential. So we'll look at the inner exception. Azure CLI something 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 something. Let's see here. Can we go bigger? Nope. We can do this though. Due to an unknown error. Great. Interactive authentication is needed. Is that not what I just did? Azure. Okay. So we're gonna kill this. Take my terminal, and I'm gonna once again drag it over here. And I'm gonna paste that command, and I'm gonna do the needful over here. Let's see. Oh, I vaguely recall this. I vaguely recall this problem. Send notification. Oh, am I gonna get hosed? Hang on. I might get hosed, but I might also be able to actually authenticate. So as an added bonus, I changed phones and didn't update this account on my Authenticator app. So the new phone doesn't have the account updated on the Authenticator app yet. The old phone doesn't have the Wi-Fi because I moved. So stupid. So stupid. Oh, I just died. Why do I do this to myself? Yeah, it says check your Authenticator app. Yeah, well, the Authenticator app isn't going to be real helpful without a network connection. Yeah. How about we go ahead and connect to that Wi-Fi? Something timeout? Something's beeping at me. Yeah, so we're gonna make this thing rethink about itself. It is all kinds of messed up. Let's see here. Come on. Connect. This is about to get really boring. Yeah, request timed out. Of course it did. Of course it did. Okay, so it wants an interactive login. And I unfortunately two-factor auth protected my account like a sane individual, and then didn't update it on my Authenticator app. And my old phone, for some reason, oh, no, now it loves the Wi-Fi. Of course it does. Now it loves the Wi-Fi. Why can't you just be normal for once? Why can't you be normal? This is why I got a different phone. Because sometimes you would just refuse to connect. And that's not okay. Come on. Stay there. Yeah. 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 And your refusal to charge was another reason why I didn't do this. So some point tonight, what we're going to do is I'm going to be changing this sucker out so that it actually works properly. And I have the Authenticator app appropriately running. Okay, I think it's signed in. I think it's connected. I'm going to just run this one more time and see what it does. Because it was unhappy that my authentication here was past a 90-day window. Which I get. Like, it's good. I approve of this happening. Oh, there we go. Two-factor auth code. Come on. Nope. Don't tell me the battery's low. Don't tell me the battery's low. Accept two-factor auth request. And then something went wrong on the configuration. Dang nabbit. Okay, so I apparently am going to need to futz with whatever the heck my authentication scheme is. That's fun. That's exciting. I don't like this. Why is auth so hard? Okay. Let's see if I can move this over to my other account though. That would save me a lot of trouble. And when Kalen gets here, I think what we're gonna do is jump gears and do, well, I believe he has some stuff to show in regards to the new installer stuff, and then I think I'm gonna get a bit of a lesson in joining. Sure. Oh, and we might even get his face today. So hang on, I gotta put myself back in the happy place. And then we will probably just go through and do a, I may have to switch for a quick moment while I get him set up and going, and then we will be right back. I need to set myself a reminder to make a be right back scene here, and then we'll actually get to it. I think so. Okay, I will wait for him to drop in while I click some buttons, and then we will dive right in. So, back in just a moment. Okay. Kaylin, welcome back. So, for anybody who missed last week's stream, this is the brains behind Velopack. I think that's the way I introduced you last time, and I think it's no less accurate this time around.
Like I said, you're being too kind.
Well, so I think what we were gonna do is, let's see, take a look at either some of the web view stuff or the front end stuff for Flow. Was that I think that's what I had said.
Yeah, well, I could do some show and tell and show you what I've been working on for the Wizard UI web view stuff, or we could just go straight into the front end. I don't mind.
Um, Maybe we jump straight to the front end since I didn't set my thing up to capture your screen share. Just realized that. So that might make it a little more interesting. I
So
will.
that means you have to lead in the front end stuff too, then.
This is the problem. uh, maybe I spoke too soon. Okay, well let me go and grab it real quick and dash where I was at, and then assuredly pull for I assume your release details branch.
That was your branch, I think, but I have carried on in it.
Wonderful. So for anybody who is unaware, so Velopack, as I mentioned before, it's your I guess one-stop solution as a installer as well as a update framework that you can plug into your application to be able to go through and do. The all of that is open source out on GitHub. You can go poke around, have fun, take a look at it. What it doesn't give you out of the box is any kind of hosting that's available out there. And so what Velopack Flow is our hosted solution. So if you just want to run command and have everything show up on the cloud and it just work, that is the intent behind Flow. If you are interested, drop us a line in the Discord. It's somewhere under me. And we can see, because it is something that is not released yet, but will be hopefully in the near future. If all that's accurate.
So for some background then on this, we have been kind of bitten a little bit because I haven't been working on the front end for a while, and so all the packages were out of date. And so I've updated all the packages, and that has come with a bunch of, well, on NPM, unfortunately, every time a package gets updated, even if it's a nice little patch version, it must break something. That's a rule of NPM packages. So
Of course.
I have been going through and trying to fix all the bugs. There is one yet that I have not fixed. So I realize now that I can't actually see your screen on Teams.
Oh
I can
yeah,
only see it
sorry.
on the stream.
Oh,
That's all
well,
right.
that I can fix very quickly. Bing.
Nice. Okay. So there's one thing that we kind of have to just exclude before we can actually get started on the fun stuff.
Okay.
If you just like kind of Control Shift F and search for motion outlet.
Okay.
So there's three places where we use that. So in root, like it's the bottom three matches there.
Okay. So these ones down here.
And yeah, and those we just need to not use. So the motion outlet is the thing which when you switch pages, it does this nice little animation where like the old one kind of, animates out and a new one animates in.
Got it.
Sorry, if we go back to that first match that you just commented out before we get too far away from it. So we
Oh
need to
yeah.
replace this with just a regular outlet.
Oh, okay.
Because there's been enough changes to the underlying kind of routing libraries that we use. The motion outlet is now not happy, so we just
And then do I need a
yeah, just that first one.
okay. So I need to do this and it'll end up being the same thing here. Right, that
Yeah,
goes
I was
there.
hoping to see if I could fix that yesterday, but just couldn't quite figure it out.
And here. You'll be happy to know I'm not quite as worthless on React as I am on Rust. So I
Okay, so then the next thing that we can do just to, I guess, make sure things are working. So because the other thing that's broken is I have this like mocking um, layer so that you
Mhm.
can kind of run the UI locally and not against the backend.
Yep.
And I think that the backend APIs have moved on enough now in my absence that that mock
Uh
now is
oh,
just 404s on most things. So what we could do to just
my
test
bad.
for now is just run it against the production API.
Right. And
So
that
the way to do
was,
that is in config.ts
yeah,
inside services.
thank you. I was like, I remember I had seen it.
Yeah.
This is
And
where
then it's just is production is the one that decides that. So we can just set that to true. Should
I
all be
could
good now. So you
I
just,
could probably come through and clean up some of these too, since I'm somewhat familiar with all of that. And it's what? npm dev
npm start now.
start.
Did you get autocomplete suggestions in your terminal? I didn't know that was a thing.
Yes, I did.
Is that just the Copilot extension or is that something else?
It is coming from, because I get it in the Windows terminal as well. I'm trying to remember which. It is one of the AI ones that magically includes it. It is both a blessing and a curse. Um, it's very good at figuring out from other things, and sometimes it's like, yes, that's exactly what I want, and other times it's like, stop completing. You have no idea what I'm doing. Go away.
Okay, now moment of truth. Let's see if I actually
Did it
fixed
actually
things.
work? I mean, it didn't die, but it doesn't look. That's not what the landing page looks like normally.
No, what do we see in the console?
Let's see. Does not provide an export name for grid 2.
Oh, I thought I fixed all of those.
I'm guessing.
Oh, you need to run an npm install.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. That'll do it. Okay. Kill this for a second.
I think there was only one package in the packages JSON that didn't have a major update. Oh,
I'll say this for npm packages: at least the authors update consistent
yeah, yeah.
to a
I
fault.
find with Rust, it seems like no package on Rust ever makes it to 1.0. Like those are unicorns, right? Like what happens with Rust is like people work on it, make something really cool, release it as like 0.1, and then it just works and they never have to come back to it, you know?
It never needs updates.
Well,
Why is
quite often
Mooey?
that's what happens.
Apparently, Mooey is really slow, I guess.
It's big, yeah.
The nice part is the production one seems to be working just fine.
Well,
Okay.
the production one shouldn't have these code changes that we've made, so
Yeah.
um, it didn't have to go through all the uh, new packages and then all the bug fixes. So I have no guarantees that this is. I mean, I suspect this is more broken than production. That's the simple way to put it.
Is it intentional that this switched to red?
Just a V update, I think, to do that. These are just debug messages.
Yeah, I'm not used to debug messages being red.
Yeah, I know. It was a bit of a shock for me as well.
Okay. Well, and good news. That, and then here's production. So,
Nice.
huzzah. Cool. And I
All
even
right.
have stuff out here. Okay.
So we click around to, let's like go into a project,
Mm-hmm.
go click back on default team. I just want to make sure that the kind of obvious things are
Are
working.
in and working.
So that's obviously wrong. It did not have a last release 2000 years ago, although, that would have been, I'd be quite impressive if you did that
I
somehow.
yeah. I think the lack of an update, and this may be an awkward situation. Well, no, people can make their own projects, so the fact that this thing has a channel without a release is probably a abnormality since you can't typically make channels willy-nilly.
Mm. Well, I think I
And
saw that
without
on one
going
of my
through
own projects yesterday too, though, so I don't have any
yeah.
channels on that one.
I mean, somebody could if they went through our API, but typically it's not going to manifest that way. Which I think it was for me pounding on the API.
Yeah. So either something changed in the front end in the package updates in the sense that we're now handling date times differently, or something's changed in the back end in terms of how it returns dates, because that used to say never if there was no packages published.
It's fair. I think we should be able to just F5 this and confirm. Because I will say the backend has received updates because of my aggressive Dependabot auto mergey stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it does bring things in, but we can look at the. Hold up, that's not the endpoint. Nope. Where is my other? I'm looking for an XHR in here, aren't
Yeah, you can filter by that at the top if you just click fetch/XHR. You want?
I? There, and that shows the list of teams, but not the. Fetch XHR.
On the left.
There. Oh, hey, look at that. There's a real chance I am responsible for this. I'm guessing this was null before and may not be null now.
Could be.
Let me make a note. I can just say, go fix your WAT, Kevin.
If that's the only bug we run into, I'll be a happy camper.
Cool. Okay. Well, if that's all we've got to fight with, that's not horrible. Okay. Was there anything else we wanted to poke at?
No, maybe just flick through the tabs on team just to make sure they all populate. So the
So I'm currently
billing
sitting,
stuff.
yep,
Yeah.
free tier.
So I did notice a bug yesterday. This might be a back end thing or front end, I'm not sure. But I had a developer plan back
Mm-hmm.
like 8 months ago, um, which I had upgraded and then downgraded back to free.
Okay.
And so I have the nice little message there saying, "Oh, your plan is going to expire on June 11th, and go back to the free plan." So that was a nice little message, but obviously never went back. It never reverted back to the free plan. Just stuck on the developer plan.
Oh. I'm willing to bet that is because we rely on Stripe notifications coming through. And it is very possible that the queuing of that may have occurred before we flip. That may have occurred when we were on the dev Stripe. And then when I
Hmm.
flipped it to prod, it never would have gotten that webhook coming through.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that well, although I wouldn't hope that we're desyncing with Stripe, but I suspect that is possibly going to happen in some weird scenarios. We may want to do a periodic scan of some kind.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely agreed. Especially on ones where we know and we expect things coming through.
Yeah, I mean, probably like I don't know, a daily scan would easily catch anything, and then maybe we just log a warning somewhere so that we know that there is something not quite working right. We can go back and check it.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, I think all of these ones populated through.
Yeah, it all looks like it's working, so that's good. It's not
Points
broken too much.
points awarded.
So let's just kind of think a little bit about the API refactoring then that's happened. So there's now an API for opening up a release, right? Or do you just start
Yes, because
uploading to a release?
correct. Yes, and I may go and grab that real quick so I don't speak too incorrectly. But yes, there is a start. I think it's a create for it. But yes, an API to create the release, and then it has the two flags on it, and I'm trying to remember exactly what they were. There's the one for is submitted effectively. What are the names on these guys?
Because I did notice that the is enabled flag has disappeared from a release. So we no longer know that in the UI if a release is like on, I guess.
Well, I don't think that would have been intentional. Because what did we call it? Bundle? What was the name of that thing? Sorry, I'm now testing my memory of what I did like weeks ago. Okay. Okay. So these are the pull down, manifest, get, update, delete, upload, release, and this is where it actually gets queued and checked, but this is not, that just puts it in the upload bucket to be able to push it through. We want this.
So the CLI is going to open a release, upload all the files to it, and then commit the release with some request at the end, right? So that we know these are all the files that we're ever expecting to get. And the background processing then goes through those. And as long as we successfully complete all those processing, we know that the release is complete and it's ready to go.
Correct.
I think that's what my memory is saying.
Yeah, so the release group has the is valid flag. That's right. It moved that. Okay, now I'm remembering. It's because it moved off of the release and moved onto the release group of where it ended up landing. So there's the is enabled did disappear off of release, but it's because we were doing it at the group level rather than at the individual release level, because the release itself was like the full package, the delta, the setup.
Yeah.
Right. And so the release group contains all of it. And so then the release group has the draft, published, and unlisted. So the published and unlisted are the rough equivalents of what used to be the enabled flag.
That makes sense. Yeah. I remember us talking about that now that you say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the is valid check that we had plugged in was down here verifying that we pick up a full release and a setup package is what ultimately ends up making it, with everything else being optional to come through. Right, which may end up, Delta packages may die at some point anyway, but at least then we have this. So yes, okay, so that's why I wasn't seeing it, because I was looking at the wrong set of methods. So yes, so there's create release group, gets you started, and then that will spin up the release group for you to start. And then the update call on release group, I believe, is what lets you toggle it. And it, I believe, is what has the extra rules in there of validating your state transitions to make sure that release groups only go in happy directions. So from a draft, you can only go to published or unlisted. From published, you can only go to unlisted. And from unlisted, you can only go to published. And those are the only valid transitions between those states.
Yeah, agreed. And you can only upload files to a draft.
Correct. Yeah, the processing one, I believe, flags it when it comes through. if it is. Here, we can just do draft in here. Oh, no, it doesn't even get to the processing. It blocks it here on the actual upload itself.
Maybe this is a project for a future day, but I'd love it if we spent a bit of time going through the back end and maybe the Terraform infrastructure stuff as well, just so that I can get a bit more familiar with it.
Yep, happy to. It'll be good for me to make sure that I can remember everything that past Kevin did. I was saying earlier on my stream, past Kevin was an idiot. So I unfortunately have to deal with him on a daily basis.
I feel like that every time I don't know, there's like a time period. If it's been less than 12 months ago, I'm usually okay with it. But if it's been, I don't know, a year and a half ago, I'm just thinking, who wrote this? Couldn't have been me, right?
Yeah. Then you make the mistake of opening up the blame and go, oh, please don't be me.
Yeah. Okay, so everything looks good on back end wise. So we've got to change the UI. So we should show you the channels, and the release groups are a child of a channel. Um,
Yes.
so that currently is not a thing that we do. So
Yep.
right, yeah, so we've got a releases tab, right? But I think what that needs to be is release groups, really. And we can just call it a release in the UI. It doesn't have to be named release group, but
Yeah.
because I think in my head I was thinking like it's a release. A release contains a list of assets, and the assets include like setup and the full package and the deltas and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this should be a list of release groups, which it's not currently.
Yep.
Um, it should be filterable by channel, probably.
Yeah. Because I imagine that's ultimately yeah, because um, I guess then the question is, do we expect clicking on a channel to just basically take you here with that filter in place?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was. Well, actually, what I was thinking is we need a channel details page. So if
Mm.
you click on a channel, you'll go to that new channel details page,
Yep.
and that can either, I mean, yeah, that probably will just have a link on it to take you back to the releases for that channel, but we also have other things to show in channels, like the latest download link or something, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we don't need that right away. So this grid that we're looking at here is an advanced grid with lots of fancy bells and whistles, right?
Yep.
Um, but there are some simpler grid components because I don't suspect that we're going to have a ton of channels that we need to paginate them
Yep.
in theory.
Yeah.
So
I
if you
mean,
go,
if people get past 20, I'll be shocked.
yeah, I mean that's a ton I was thinking more like 10, but anyways, if you go back to default team for a second,
Mm-hmm.
so this is the simpler table, which is just kind of like in this particular way, you can click a project, it takes you there. In the members tab, there is a little menu as well. So what we could do is there's no menu on yourself. So if I was in this
Right.
team, you could do actions on me, for example. But um, so what if we switch the channels to this style? And in the menu on the side, we just have two options, which is either view releases or
Mm.
um, download latest setup,
Yeah.
or get latest setup link or something like that.
Yep.
Because those are the two things that I'd really like you to be able to do for a channel, at least for the first version.
Yep.
And then we don't have to worry about building that whole other page.
Yep. I like it because I think getting that link was even. I think we've got an item on our project board for actually doing that at some point. So
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay, cool. So we can start there maybe.
Sounds like a plan. So I think if I remember my way roughly around here, I'm gonna end up in this vicinity and then here. I think.
Yes, so we will want to replace the MRT table that we're using here with the simpler, I think it's called the data table that I created. So we can grab an example. Yeah.
I go here, and I'm going to end up wanting something like that, right? And then it's just going to be something of that nature.
Yeah, let's just copy this and see what we need to do to.
Here, let's just grab the whole. I could grab too much, but that's fine.
What's that red squiggly on line 9? Why is it complaining?
Project ID does not exist on type object.
Have you restarted VS Code since we did an npm install?
I have not.
I had that same problem until I restarted it.
Good to know. It would have probably taken me about a day to figure out, because that would be how long until I rebooted. Okay.
It took me about an hour. It was quite a waste.
Okay, so we then want. Do I want to nuke this? There's not that
I would
much
say
here.
nuke everything except for the first 2 lines, probably. Well, yeah, I guess the last ones you can keep too.
Well, I still want. Well, I think what I copied though is too much, and I want to get this, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Kind of where I'm wanting to get to. Oh, stupid. I don't have my formatter configured.
And
then,
somehow we'd managed to not copy the data table itself. We've only got the data rows there, so.
Interesting. Where did I?
This is just the team member row function. Yeah, so
Oh, it's because I clicked on the wrong thing rather than the actual thing. So I actually am going to end up wanting. Maybe I actually want this instead, right? I think is a little closer to what we actually want. Because that's the actual data table all the way through there, I think. Let's grab that, because I don't know if that's just the individual row, and I don't care about that specific row.
I'll tell you what, let's just look at, if you look at the projects tab, it's a much simpler table. I think if we just grab it from there, it fits in like
hey.
6. Yeah, that's much better.
Oh, yes, that is much nicer. Okay, and then I just need to make sure we grab the. I'm going to need these guys here. May not need necessarily all of them, but. Let's see. So, don't think we're going to end up needing the schema in the end, and I've already got page selection, so I'll just drop this in favor of this. Okay, and then we need to. Let's see. This is there. Let's see, and this becomes. Well, I guess I want to see here. So release count, size, last published. Size we already got. Last published. And then release count. Probably more akin to that, I think. Okay. And then rather than team refresh, I think we already have a. Do we not already have a function for this?
Yeah, so I haven't worked on this in a while, but use channel search. I'm just wondering if there's something like There's going to be a refresh function on that. I think we can just deconstruct it out in that line 10 there.
Line 10. Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's already there. Channel search refresh. Yeah.
Oh, so I just, okay, there we go. I want that to be there. And then this will end up being, that's,
So we've exported something else on line 10 there, was it? Channel search data.
yep. So what is that guy? No, navigate. Channels. So does that end up being, no, I said I wasn't quite as worthless, but that may have been overstating.
So yeah, so you just pass that into data because that's an array of things, right? So that's fine.
Ah,
And
okay.
then what we get here is there's a render function that's line starting 57, and that gets passed in each item.
Hmm.
So now we can, with row, make some, yeah, exactly.
Number of releases. That all goes
Oh,
there.
line 61, what was that? Row.current bytes? Oh, do we have that? Is that actually a thing? We just need a header for it, I guess. Oh no, that's size, isn't it?
That's size, isn't it? Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
So I can get away with that. And then this is MUI. Yeah. Chevron right, I assume, is also MUI. Yeah. And href is util, I assume.
Yes, it is. We won't end up needing it, but we can keep it for now just to
That's
see it
true.
working, I guess.
Well, but I have to point it at something, and project ID
So
from row ID is going to be a 404.
yeah, we won't be making the row clickable though, because we're gonna add a menu, which we don't have yet, but
Right. So you want me to just whack the whole?
you can just nuke it for now, right? I just want to see that we've got it working before we add the menu.
Mm-hmm. So now I don't need anything left from up here, right? Release count,
No,
size, last published. So all of you are now meaningless. Don't need you anymore. And I don't need any of you anymore. Okay, we'll leave the dialogue because I think we're going to need that. And then this just works flawlessly, right?
that's how it always works. Never written code that has bugs in it.
Because at one point in time, I did spend a little bit of time going through and trying to learn some React. Oh, I'm sitting here waiting for it to launch, and it's me forgetting that it's already there, ready to go. Okay, so I've clearly done and botched a few of my things for the columns.
Just one small thing, I think. I think everything else is right. So if we just go back,
Yeah, I think,
it's just that line 16 needs to go away.
yeah. Then world becomes a happy place. There we go.
Oh, one more thing. If we go back, our first column on line 16 needs to align left.
Oh, yep.
And for some reason, our chevron is not aligned with the refresh button. So there's still one more issue here.
Let's see.
So we have we have 5 columns, which is right.
1, 2, 3. Well, is it this is just the alignment of the box, though.
Yeah, the box is fine. I think that's the issue.
Do we need to be more explicit about the, well, maybe I should do this.
It's all built into the data table. It should all do this alignment automatically.
Yeah,
So
let me see what was done here. So there was that, which seems to have been fine. It's my content center, right? Those both align.
okay, it's not super important. We don't actually technically need a chevron anyways. We're going to be replacing it with a menu.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a bit weird. You can grab the menu from the themes page.
So that was under the members, right?
Yeah,
And so
that's the one. Expand icon menu.
I want to grab that whole sucker. And then putting you here. And then I don't know that I care to grab some of this, right? So these are just the two icons for it because we're doing copy latest link and then what, view releases?
Yeah.
Do we already have something under the releases page? We don't really have an icon here already, do
Yeah,
we?
we do in the sidebar there. Yeah, that's the icon we use for releases.
Oh, got it. So we want that one as the one. Let's see here. So that is going to be here. We want widgets two-tone.
So it'll just be widgets. The two-tone is only for bigger icons. I know I haven't written these design rules down anywhere, but
Totally fine. Totally fine.
widgets, yeah.
You're dealing with an amateur here, so it's
Nice. And then for the download one, we can just use like well, we want actually it's copy link. It's not download, isn't it?
yeah, it's
So
true.
we could use content copy.
Okay. And then copy.
Latest setup or something.
Yeah. I want the word link, but it feels really long putting that on there.
It should be fine. I mean, we can just see. Let's comment out the actions here because we don't want to actually do anything. And then we can
Make sure to actually. Okay. And then. Yeah, it's not bad.
looks okay to me.
Seems reasonable. And magically the alignment fixed itself. So,
Yeah,
huzzah.
those are the best kind of problems that go away on their own.
They are, it's the type of thing I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, I know what I did wrong. It will bother me.
I mean,
Okay.
most of the components that we use in the actual code here are things that I've written, like expand icon menu or data table. So, and I've tried to like write them so that they magically align themselves. The reason being, if we need to change the way that something works, I can just do it in those reusable components and it just fixes itself everywhere instead of having to go fix it in 17,000 places.
We already have a nice.
You can copy to clipboard, yes, that's a thing.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
But do we have the link?
Probably not. That's a detail. That's a minor problem. There is an API for it. Let's see here. So, let's see here. Let's see, because we have a package and channel, so it's download latest installer. So it'll be that guy if we want to build up the link.
Cool. We should be able to figure that out then.
Yep. So
I mean, ideally the backend would kind of tell us, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we can. I'll put that on my to-do list. Add latest download to release group. Let me just confirm that it's not there before I say for certain, but I don't think it is. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, not currently there, but it could be. Do we have a reasonable way of getting our base URL? I think I can infer some of these other ones, right? Because at this point in here, I've got my row, which my row is going to be my channel. So that's going to make this part easy, right? Isn't it? What's the interpolation here? Is it just as simple as row dot?
No, you need $ curly bracket.
It's
And
inside.
you also need to change it from a double quote to a backtick string.
Oh, thank you. That's that. Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out if we have the base URL already somewhere. I mean, we must have it somewhere because otherwise how do we do API requests?
Yeah, and I mean, if we want to, for the moment, we can, like, I can just,
That's not the base URL though. The base URL is the API, which we have somewhere. I just don't remember where. I'm wondering if that's something that's kind of getting it pulled from our open API spec when we refresh that.
oh, it could be. The other thing I'm realizing that we don't have on the channel itself is the package ID.
Um,
Why do we need the package ID? Is
we
now
can
my
get that. We have access to that here if we need it.
Well, we currently need it. I'm just now current Kevin is wondering why past Kevin needed the package ID if I knew the channel.
Well, no, because
Oh, because the channel isn't the channel ID.
Yeah.
That's why. So that's
This is fine. We do have access to the base URL. I found it.
okay.
So it's exported in a const called Open API. So if you just type Open API, you should probably see it pop up. Yeah. Dot base.
And then how do we
Right.
get
So how we get that is we're going to have to use a hook at the beginning of this function.
okay?
So at the very beginning of this whole React component. Yeah. So we have the project ID. Let me see if I can remember how to do this. Use project details, I think.
So this guy here has guy here, right? Nope, that's the
Yeah, going through these typings is a bit of a mess. It's probably going to be faster just to like get IntelliSense to tell you what you can get from it.
fair enough.
Project data. There you go.
And then the theory then is this guy here has data dot
Package
package
ID.
ID. Seems simple. So now, in theory, if I go here, right, and I go here, and I go copy latest setup link, clearly the function's not implemented.
What function?
That would have been the error above. Expand icon menu is not defined.
Well, no, we just opened the expand menu. That's an earlier error. Just clear the console maybe and try again.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing. Okay. It's helpful.
Yeah. Huh?
Can you refresh this page? Just to make sure.
We wrote a 3-line function. 2-line function.
I don't even know where that error message is coming from.
I
It
realize
must be that copy to clipboard function must be throwing an exception.
yeah, and I'm wondering maybe I didn't grab it properly. Import copy to clipboard.
Oh.
Because I didn't import
line,
anything for
line
it.
16. Line 16.
Oh, hey. I know where the air's coming from.
Did VS Code add that? Must
It
have.
could have been when I was going through and just auto coding in, add my missing includes.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
funny.
I have a feeling it may have been related to that. Okay. Let's copy. That looks better. And if I
And
paste it, I mean, I believe
looks
it's
good to
going to
me.
404 since there's nothing there to, yeah. There is no installer there to download,
That's fine though.
but
Front end works.
yeah. Sweet. Okay.
Cool. So I suggest we stop there on the channels page
Okay.
and not do the view releases because we don't have the tables for that yet.
Yep. Uh, channels page to table implemented to copy release link. Great. Okay. Did we go here next and then deal with this one?
Yes, I think that's sensible.
And this one here, we do want our fancy table.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to
So
pass in a channel filter at some point.
yeah, I guess the first issue we're going to have is that this is just all working on releases and not release groups. So we're going to need to start there.
So
So if you F12 on use releases search, because we're going to have to build a new hook there for details.
because we don't have any of the release group stuff in here, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
We basically need all the same stuff. I went one too far, didn't I? I don't know the opposite of Control D. So let's try this again, and this time be a little more slow when we get to the end. There. U-E. That's at least a starting point. So project ID params is probably still the right thing, right? Release group service.
Probably,
List
yeah.
release groups becomes there. Project ID, then return release groups needs to be pluralized.
So the API doesn't exist yet, so API.release group service is not a thing. So we've got to figure out what that actually is called, because that'll fix the IntelliSense and everything else, right?
Oh, release groups service.
Okay. So
Okay.
now we'll get some different errors here. So it's not happy with project ID. So obviously that's not the right thing.
So tell me, what do you want?
Channel ID,
Okay.
which we don't know because we don't have a channel ID, do we?
No. We may not have an API to just blindly query all release groups without it.
Hmm.
But we probably would prefer that, yes.
I mean, we don't necessarily need it. Like, I mean, it just means that we wouldn't have a top level releases page. You'd have to pick your channel first and then get to the releases that way.
Or I can make it optional and we
Yeah,
could
it
just
might be
build
better to make it optional. I don't know.
and make
But
it
there's
go.
no, this doesn't take a project ID or anything like a package ID. So we'll need something else here then, if it's optional.
You don't just want to get. Oh, I guess that's a good point. If we make this guy optional, we do then need to pull back.
We need the package ID here, or project ID, either way. Probably project ID.
Yeah. Let's see here.
To be honest, don't even bother allowing the channel ID to get passed in. Just take the project ID. We can filter in the UI for now.
Okay. So on the release group, then I have to go up to release channel dot. Swear I'm not as bad at typing as I'd look. Okay. We need to build and release this so that we can actually send it. Otherwise, this no worky. Okay.
So, I mean, if you want to release it, you just have to push, right?
Yeah.
So while we wait for that, we can just carry on with the front end stuff.
Yes. I was just gonna look real quick if there was anything that we needed to change on here as well, but the only other thing I need to do real quick is I strongly suspect that my tests are about to fail with that kind of change. Because past Kevin is over eager to write lots and lots of tests.
Yeah, but I like that about you. I feel like I have the opposite problem. I hate writing tests. I understand the use and I love it when I have tests. I just don't like actually writing them, you know?
Yeah. We have lots of tests. It's very hard to make a change like that and not break a test. Like, for example, this test better break. Otherwise, I'm going to question some sanity in my... Like, I want some red here. There, okay. Whoo, okay. Some of the tests actually failed appropriately.
We need you to sink your teeth into some tests in the main Velopack repo again.
Yeah, requires authenticated user. Well, this one actually, because it's just testing auth, makes some sense. Project ID. Project ID. Go there, and we just do that. There. What is your unhappiness? Data project. Okay. That should fix that, and that's the happy case test. Okay. Huzzah! Okay, we're gonna assume we didn't break any other tests. Should be all that matters. I don't have my API project open. This is the part where I realized I was sitting on main from Yieldy. Well, not that bad. Not that bad. Branch.
Don't want to YOLO it on main.
I don't trust myself. These groups do have to list based on project. For points for spelling. And then send it. Great. And open on GitHub. And
I have never seen that pull request UI that just popped up.
You haven't seen it?
Nope.
Okay,
Never
shameless
seen that.
self-promotion. You too could learn all about it at GitKon on December 10th and 11th.
How did I know that was coming?
Sorry, you set me up for that. Easiest way to do it is just drag your branch onto your target branch and then start pull request comes up.
Okay.
So it's one of those. I wish there was non-drag drop options as easier ways onto it. You can do it on the sidebar too, but it's all kind of drag drop initiated. But it makes it super quick. And then I'm just gonna take this tab and just kind of put it over where I can keep a close eye on it and make sure nothing bad goes wrong. Okay, so back to VS Code then. So this is gonna
So
end up.
We can just assume that project ID is what we need here. I just leave it there.
Yep.
So if we fix everything else,
Then project ID params, create loader, query, release. This is probably release groups search. Right.
I don't know if that's generated or if we need to add something to query ID.
Now let's look at this one. Looks like we added. Think.
Yeah. Query.ts is probably the one place where there still is some boilerplate, which I wasn't able to like auto-gen. But I like it because it makes it really, really easy to use data in all the other places in the app, the way that it's set up.
Okay. Didn't I just add you?
Releases group search is different.
Got it right in the string. I just didn't get the identifier. Okay.
Also, yeah, there's still an S missing. Release groups search, I think. Yeah, and the bottom two.
Yes, thank you. Hey, I'm going to butcher this name, Magino. Velopack is a cross-platform installer and update framework. The framework itself and the installer and everything is free and open source. We're poking at an add-on called Velopack Flow, which is a hosted service. So if you just want to have your installer hosted in the cloud and not think too hard about it. That is a paid service we are working on building out. Okay, and that for the spelling. And then the rest of that should all just magically line up once we get it going.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so back to here. Right, so this.
So I don't think that we need release of search at all. We just need to change this to be release group.
Right. And then this should have an S on there, shouldn't it? Same with all of these.
I don't know, it's up to you if you want. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think when this thing didn't match with me changing it, it made me immediately suspect that I wanted to change it. The other ones were pluralized, so it feels like it should be pluralized.
Sure. So there's something weird here. Why is the line 206 not used?
Declared, but its value is never used. And release group search. Oh, because I didn't edit all of the places.
Okay, looks good.
Okay. And this guy here.
Just probably need to import it.
That's a good point. Yep, which I think is exactly what Victor was trying to tell me, and I ignored him. And we're going to probably just need all of these, I imagine. Right, and so this becomes... I get annoyed having to remember how to type. That goes like that, that goes like that, and then magic occurs. Oh, sorry, pipeline failed. See, why I can't. This is why I can't be trusted.
Still a failing test?
Yeah, don't know, what did I break? Hang on. Easier just to do this rather than running an isolated test. Let's just hit them all because the whole suite does not take that long to run. I'm sure there's one extra thing somewhere that I have now botched. Come back to that in a minute. Okay. So those guys are loaded. So this should, well, aside from the fact that our query identifier is wrong due to the moron who didn't deploy things out. Okay. Well, the good news is we didn't break any of our systems that we didn't touch. So that's good. Oh, I hate myself so much right now. Hate myself so much right now. Should have known. We made a break.
Just a verification that you don't break anything by accident?
Correct. This is no breaking API changes without intentionally doing so. It is both the best and the worst possible test that I have ever written. And where's it at? I hate this test. I am constantly, oh, it's right in front of me. Constantly getting bit by this. I mean, it's good in that it makes me not accidentally push a breaking change without realizing it. And this is a a breaking API change, but it's also we haven't publicly released. So you know what? Breaking API changes, totally valid. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we get it out there, though, that is going to be a great test to have.
Yeah.
We're going to have to figure out once we actually launch this thing how we're going to coordinate updates between the back end and the front end.
Yes. Well, and I think what we can do, because the backend has already got the V things for the versioning, I think we just leave V1 APIs in place and we roll V2, right? For anything that we want to do. And then once V2 backend is out, the front end can just migrate over whatever needs to do so to column.
Can we upgrade one API at a time? Like if we just have a new version of the release groups, but not of the whole API, is that possible?
Yep. Every single one of them is, well, this is the test project, but on the API service, you'll note every single one of them is underneath this V1. So the implementation is under V1, and then here's your mapping, right? So if I want to do a V2 and only put, you know, a slash list in V2, I just grab those lines and I'm done.
Yeah, that's good. That's exactly what I was hoping it was like.
So that way there's something there that we can rev up as needed. I shamelessly stole that structure from, who did I take that from? One of the Azure things. I'd seen it somewhere and went, oh, I'll do that. So sorry, I'm gonna once again put
What time are you planning on wrapping up tonight, by the way?
I am probably good for maybe another half hour. That,
Sure.
see. Yeah. I got about 6 ounces more of energy. That sounds like about a half hour.
Yeah.
That's how that works, right? Okay, so that's once again going again, and hopefully bloody fail. I should make it run that test first because it's the most likely failure test rather than it being near the end. Okay. What else can we do here without that query?
We can start updating the table because it has all their own columns, I imagine.
Yeah, because it has release type, which doesn't really make sense anymore.
So there is type checking on this.
Okay.
However, it's in line 14 where you specify what you want to type check against. And that's not something we've set yet. So line 14, MRT schema, and then the type. So that's not something that's not correct.
Right. So this should be release group details. Where does... Oh, because we haven't imported it. Right.
So what is release group search data? What's the type there? Yeah, just release group. Okay.
Right. So that way so that's what we need there. Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah. If we just replace that, we should get a bunch of errors saying that the columns don't exist. And again, this MRT schema, I think, is something I added because I couldn't get the type checking to work. Yeah. And I really wanted it to work. So.
Well, and I don't know that there's a good equivalent here for release type. By the way, PR merged and is now walking its way out.
Nice. So yeah, no, release type doesn't exist because the release type is really now the asset type, which exists as a sub element of a release group. So that's fine.
Right. And I was going to say, because what we actually have here for, I'm just going to grab, oh, no. Click on the right thing, you moron. Because this is what we actually end up with is version, size, state, and then some date related stuff on here. So depending on how we want to do that, and I think we could do count of releases. I don't know if we care to do count of file uploads. Count of file uploads is kind of your transient when you're in that draft state, you can keep track of them. But once you've moved out of draft state, file uploads kind of become meaningless. They're more historical of, hey, here was the upload that triggered the release that came through.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So we need the channel for sure.
Yep.
We need the number of releases. No, hold on. I mean, the number of assets could be nice to have, which is that not the file uploads that you were just showing?
Yeah, it'll be number of releases, because file uploads is the number of things you've uploaded but haven't been processed yet.
Right. So, okay, right. My terminology is a bit different to how the backend doing it. So a release in the backend is an asset in my mind.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you now. Gotcha.
And honestly, we could go through and rename this, because post-release it'll be much harder.
We do call them assets even in the core libraries.
Adding to my list
Velopack
here.
asset.
We're thinking release asset is the right name, correct? Rather than just
Well,
asset, or do you just?
we call it Velopack asset specifically everywhere in the client libs. I'm not saying that's the right class name. I'm just saying that's what it's called. So if we wanna pick a name and then just like standardize that throughout, we can.
Well, I think asset is a good name to use. I'm just wondering if asset by itself is good, or if it really needs more context. Because I'm worried that at some point we might have other assets as well.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I wonder
sure.
if
In the API, maybe release asset makes sense. Yeah.
okay. Okay. So I guess we don't need notes anymore. That's
Yeah.
not relevant. Published.
We may want to, like, I don't know, save a copy of this somewhere because we're going to be using these columns in the assets table.
Yep. My thought is I can grab them from the Git history.
Yeah, we'll do that. Sure.
Do we want to? I feel like published is probably the wrong term here, since
Probably the thing that we want to know here is probably the last published date. So like the most recent release. What do we call that in other places? I think in the channels we have a column for this.
yeah, last published, what we called it here. I can steal that. Okay. What is ID unhappy about?
Probably because channel name doesn't exist on this object that we've given.
Oh, probably not. It could. There's
You
not
just
a.
F12 on release group and see what
Yep.
we've got.
I think it comes with. Yeah, it doesn't have its parent on there, but it very easily could.
So how? Because we've changed the API, we haven't updated the models, right? Because if you're passing in the channel ID to get these release groups, then it would make sense that you have the channel ID already. You don't need it back in the models, but
Right.
because now we've changed the API to take project ID, the
Correct.
model needs to return which channel it's in.
Correct. Do we want it to have just channel name, or do we want it to have more like the fully flushed out channel object? So I'm kind of thinking it might be nice to have channel ID as well. So maybe the returned object should just contain channel.
I have no strong preferences. I don't think that we need anything other than channel name, but if you think there's some benefit, feel free.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we're going to get ourselves bit in a situation where we then want channel further down. Like I could see if we ever wanted to add like a copy link thing where we end up needing the channel ID in there or similar, but
Well, once you're in a release group, you're going to be dealing with assets.
that's true.
So if you wanted you can download an asset link, but it's not a channel thing anymore. It's download the specific asset, which will be a different link.
Got it. Okay. I will get channel name put on there then. Okay. And I think we just finished deploying.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to deploy again, right? Channel name.
Yeah, yes.
We can do that later, though, if you want.
That's fair. Okay.
So just comment out channel for now, I guess. We don't have it.
Yeah, which was kind of the whole thing that we needed from the other one. Okay, size does exist on there. Last published at version exists on there. And that's currently everything.
There are no other parameters in release group here that we might want to use. Just F12. Okay, we're not.
State would be the other big one I think we might
State,
want to show off of draft, published, or unlisted. I think is
Agreed.
probably a big one. And I'd venture to say that's probably right up there, right after version. It's
or on the very right-hand side, but it should be on one of the ends. I agree.
yeah. Because I think version is probably the most critical.
Hold on, last published doesn't really make sense here because this is effectively a release, so it really should be created at or published at.
Yeah, I mean
It's currently
looking at created at.
Yeah.
And
which is fine.
I don't currently store the timestamp when it was pushed over to like published, but that's not a hard thing if we want to grab like when it was last updated at. And
I don't think it matters. We just need to rename this column. That's all.
Okay. So, what did you say? Created it?
Sure. Yeah.
And then I think I like your suggestion of putting state all the way at the end. And then what is our text? Is state the right word? I know that's what it's called in the back, but
Status.
status probably makes sense to most people.
And then I don't know if that'll just work out of the box. It might do, because this is going to be an enum, not technically text. But why don't we see if we can get it running and then have a look?
What is the magical? I'm trying to remember the command to regen the Open API stuff.
Yeah, so you'll need to kill the API server here, and then it's just
pointed at prod.
npm.
Oh, you mean kill the dev server that we're running, right?
And then just npm run Open API. No dash.
Copilot, you missed an opportunity to look cool there.
It actually auto-suggested the old command that it used to be, which was gen-API, but I changed it.
Yeah, that I get. It's smart enough to look at my history and go, "Oh, I know what you meant," and then, so it's as dumb as past me.
Yeah, well, past you was smart because it was right at one point.
Okay, so that goes away, and then I just want to F12 into here to make sure that this now is correct. Huzzah! So,
do you have any release groups in this thing that we're looking at?
I don't remember. typically when I've tested, I've done it local and not always out on the environment. So
Maybe we could always point this at your local instance if that's easier, but I've not even like tried to get the local API running yet. I know that you've got some nice little docs for that, but
yes, we're gonna see. No records to display.
well, it's not an error, so
I mean that's it responded. So that's a plus.
yeah.
Version created at status. I thought we had size on here. Did I misread something? Shouldn't I?
Initially hidden, so it's a column that's showable, but
Oh,
not.
got it. Okay, cool.
I don't
So
mind if you want to show it, but yeah, that's just why it's not visible at the moment.
no, I don't know how valuable it is. I just like the only people
My,
I think who are looking at the size of their release groups are the ones trying to figure out where their storage allocations went. So it seems like being able to turn it on is probably sufficient.
my thinking was the fewer columns that we show, the more screen size friendly it is
Mm-hmm.
by default. But obviously, then having additional data that's revealable is handy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's maybe quickly push out channel name, right?
Sure.
Let's see. Required string channel name. That'll make my life nice and breaky. That way things don't compile anymore. And we will remember to update that test before I push so that I don't get hosed by it again. Yeah. Copilot, you've been wonderful. Hey, Copilot, do it again. Thanks. No. See,
Not that time.
can't take you anywhere, Copilot. Okay, so that handles all of those. And then this we'll run this guy. That will immediately go and break in all of the right ways, I hope. And then go down here. I need to make you bigger. Oh. Sorry, where am I? Oh,
That one
release
looks important.
channel. Release channel does it as well. Okay. We can handle that. The other one was just a process one. Ooh. Apparently, I have a warning now after one of the. I'm sure this came in with one of the auto NuGet upgrades. Okay, and now we've got the test that we have to update, and this should be. Come on. Really? You're not going to help me? There you go. Thank you.
What are your thoughts on trailing commas in the last lines?
This one?
Yeah.
I don't mind them. You have a preference one way or the other?
It's one of those things, a lot of code style things I don't care about, but it to no end frustrates me that in Git history, if I have to add an item to a list and I had to add a comment on the
Oh,
line before, that it just makes the history looks really weird.
I have a colleague that does something similar with list initializers for the same reason of I don't want to have to add an item and see a diff on 2 lines because I added one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I can at least understand that. Yes, I don't have any strong preferences. I don't think the editor config in here has anything set on it one way or the other.
I usually make that an error in like JavaScript and Rust because it's quite easy to do. In Rust, you can actually even add that final trailing comma in method parameters,
Oh,
where in C Sharp that's not allowed.
that's interesting. Okay, well, that conveniently shows and confirms that we only have one property edition in the place we expect. Test. I will
Should we do something like this for the client libs as well to make sure that we don't make breaking changes? Or do you think that's just overkill?
It's perfectly possible. Like at one point in time, system command line did it. Like all it's using is the verify library for, or yeah, verif. Trying to remember the NuGet package in particular. It's using anything that you can effectively stringify. It's got some stuff that's fancy around, yeah, verify XUnit. To like take objects and similar for doing snapshot based testing. But typically when I've used it, I kind of prefer my own stringify stuff rather than it like JSON serializing objects and doing the diff for me and that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, it's kind of cool for deep object comparison, but like I'm more likely to use fluent assertions for something like that rather than that. So it's like,
Mhm. I just meant more of like verifying the public API in general, like making
yeah.
sure that we're not making breaking changes to method parameters and things.
There are a handful, like at least for the .NET one, there are a handful of libraries out there that will give you nice, good stringification of your public API, because that's really what you're after is something that you can stringify. Because on these tests, you'll note there's this text file that you actually check in as well, and that's what it's
Mhm.
diffing against is your verified output, which is why the test looks all so nice and clean. But then all this thing does is literally just open API spec, which I was pleasantly surprised with, knowing that they made a bunch of changes to that. When I rev to net 9, it didn't break this test, and I was so happy. I was worried it was going to be a rainbow merge. Okay, just run the API tests. I'm going to assume that that change did, well, I can't really assume that it didn't break the processor one. We'll run the upload processor too, because that, oh look, we broke some tests. What a shock. What a bloody shock. 500 error. Object reference not set to the instance of an object. See, this is why we have tests. This is why we have tests. Release channels method, line 176. I am willing to bet the issue is, so on the back end, how familiar are you with EF Core?
Lots of experience with the original EF, not really used the new core very much, but yeah,
Got it.
obviously that it'll leave those in the original one. It'll obviously leave that object null, usually unless you tell it to populate it.
Yep, and that's typically where this. So I have EF Core set to not automatically track objects because it's more
Yeah.
performant. But that means then oftentimes I get bit by no refs because I failed to include something, which happens fairly consistently. Because this is getting a channel, returns the channel details. This is expecting the release groups, and it's expecting the release group here. This release group came off of the channel details. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to backtrace where this came from, because this channel here came from the database. We included release groups, but we did not include X. Wait, huh?
Is it a
Release
dot bin
channel.
include?
Oh, um, this is the channel. Is the problem? Oh, release groups. Then include. This is kind of weird to do like this. Because technically the channel is like here. So Okay, fine. Like, apparently I didn't follow my own indentation. That should at least fix that one. And it's only
So is
because
that something that needs to get fixed in the test and in the API, or is that just
no,
fixing in the tests?
this is just fixing the test, and I'm somewhat tempted to change it differently down here because the only reason it's breaking is because of this guy here. And actually, we have the channel. Why don't I just hang on? This doesn't need to be done like this. This was channel.name. Like, let's not be dumb. There's no reason to have to return back extra data just to make the thing happy when we already have the channel itself. I guess I was making the assumption that that dot was the null reference. And I could be...
So having used EF Core, did you have much experience with the original? Do you know what the biggest differences are? That have you had any issues kind of making the switch?
I have only... So I was only ever playing with EF6. So no real experience prior to that. The differences, I think, have largely been around like additional language features. I think has been the big things. So like the nullable reference type support was a big change in terms of how you structure stuff, because you don't fight with a lot of the nullability, but it's one of the few cases where something that was effectively an analyzer got turned into a database schema. So it's one of those gotchas where you turn on nullable reference types and all of a sudden your columns go from nullable to not nullable. It's like, what the heck just happened? That nice little string column. So that one's usually one of the big scary ID ones. But other than that, I don't feel like I fought that many problems. Okay, what actually broke here? Lambda method closure 76. So it is still inside of here that's biting. This here. Oh, because this one is not grabbing it. Then include release groups. And this is the one where it needs to pull back, because this one wants to reach up and grab the channel. This is a weird one because you really shouldn't be using the channel on this one. And it's only because I've reused the same release group object in two separate places, and in this one it probably doesn't need to have it on there. You know what? It's not going to do that much in one way or the other. Okay. Actually, you know what? I can't decide. I don't like myself when I have to do extra includes. I've been bit too many times with database queries that run amok, and now I don't have to. No extra joins. No extra joins. Not if I don't have to. Okay.
I've actually been using, so the reason I haven't used EF Core much is I've switched to using Dapper for most things now.
Ah, that's actually one that kind of excites me. There was a talk I went to at one point, may have been Build or similar, and Mark Rakinovich, I believe his title is like VP of Azure, or something of I'm in charge
he's
of
CTO now.
Yeah,
something.
something of I'm in charge of all the things. And at one point, somebody had asked him what he thought the next upcoming technology was, and this was before AI was a big deal. And Dapper had been his answer of, "This is where I see everything going to." Us like, oh, okay, well, he's been right on most things so far.
I mean, I find that really interesting, though. I mean, there's a reason why we all built ORMs, right? Is we wanted to make our lives easier when dealing with databases, and now we're all saying, yeah, let's not use ORMs, right?
Correct. Oh, translate it. Oh, I hate you so much right now. Sorry, this is now me being dumb. Translated it into a query. You asked me what the problems with this were, and this might be it. You get away with so much, and then you get hosed. Let's actually. There. Okay. Next one on the food chain. That'll make that one go away, and then it should just be this release group section that has problems. And then I assume you're all gonna die with one single thing. Expected output. This was actually one of the things that made me happy is with these tests, it's actually standing up a server in memory. Like, I don't know if you've used the web application factory much.
Oh.
It's a Kestrel local server, so when you run, you're actually executing as though you have a local server, which always makes me happy because then I catch things where it's like middleware is broken or something of that nature.
That's handy.
Yeah, and I very much approve. Let's see, release group came from where? Release group came from there. Include x dot release channel, and that should now have everything. No, Copilot, you don't get to do that. And then this should, I imagine, since these are all hitting the update endpoint, that should just fix them all in one shot. Come on. The slight disadvantage is the tests are a little bit shorter, but like I didn't write any of what people would consider true unit tests against this in most cases. Like all these endpoint tests are functional rather than Unity because they are standing up a full in-memory server. The only part that gets not real is when it gets to the database level. It's swapping out for a SQLite database on the back during the test versus not. Okay. All of that just to be able to bring this in. Let's see. Branch, add channel name, because I don't trust myself. Stage commit.
Maybe that's a good place to end for the day.
That is probably a good call. This should be out here since I actually ran the test this time. Should make its way out in probably the next 15 minutes or so. I think the last one went pretty quick. But that'll get pushed out. Cool. Well, sweet. I think then I will go prep. Unfortunately, I think I still hear my wife upstairs, which means she's probably still prepping for Thanksgiving meals. So I have a strange feeling I'm about to have some extra work. But thank you for pairing more on this, and then we'll be doing more.
Yeah, I'll probably carry on working on this bit today while you're off. Make sure if you've got any whip stuff in the front end, can you just like commit that as a whip commit so I
Oh,
can pick
yeah,
it
yeah,
up?
yeah. Yep. Let me see what I've got. A bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'll go through it. No worries. Just
I
YOLO
heard
it.
YOLO is my speciality. That and force pushing.
Yeah, nice.
Things that
Thanks
you
for having me on.
never want to hear. Cool. Well, thank you, Kaylin. Let's see here. Oop, I can go there. I know how to use my buttons. Thank you, everyone, for coming and hanging out. Hopefully that was interesting. If you haven't checked out Velopack, go ahead and do so. Velopack.io. If you have any questions, there is a fairly active Discord channel. Feel free to drop in, or you can always catch me on my Discord channel as well, and I will see what I can do to help out. As always, happy coding. See y'all next time.